Hello friends, this video on diversity in living world part 8 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Let us try to understand a new term called taxa. Before we go ahead with the study of taxonomy. So taxonomy and taxa, they are going to be related, and this is again going to be a new term for you. So just now we spoke about classification, right? So now we understand why do we need to divide living organisms into groups. So we know that since there are a huge number of organisms on this earth, that is why we need to name them so that everybody over the world can have a common name to call each organism. And that is why we need nomenclature. Now, how will we name organisms? By identifying them. So we need identification. Now, identifying so many animals is again difficult. So we need classification. So now when we were talking about classification, I told you that the organisms with similarities, they are grouped together in one group or in one category. So taxa is nothing but it is a scientific term for these categories. So each of these categories, that is known as a taxa, into which the organisms are grouped. Now, taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. Now, when I talk about taxa, it doesn't mean that it has to be a category in a lower level or it has to be a category in higher level. Now, let us see what is taxonomy. So, something related to taxa, let's see. It is the classification of living organisms into different taxa based on their characteristics. So, basically, this is a name or a scientific name of classification. So even classification is also the same thing. So taxonomy is a scientific name. So it is basically a branch of science which deals with classifying living organisms into different taxa based on their characteristics. Now, when I talk about taxonomy, it becomes important to talk about systematics. So, systematics is the branch of science which deals with systematic arrangement of organisms and relationships amongst them. So, this is a very important branch of science, systematics. So, you can use the words taxonomy and systematics as synonyms of each other because they more or less mean the same thing. But when I say systematics, this is the name given to that branch of study. So now our agenda throughout will be to classify organisms into different groups and then study about the characteristics of that particular group. That is what we are going to study now. So before that, we need to understand the different taxa or the different taxonomic categories into which we are going to divide the living organisms. So for that, we have to understand taxonomic hierarchy. So hierarchy means it is a level-like structure which is prepared, stairs-like structure which has been prepared so that we can understand which is a lower level, which is a higher level. So that kind of hierarchy has been prepared. So let us look at that hierarchy. So before we understand the taxonomic hierarchy, it is important to be familiar with few terms like taxonomic category. What is taxonomic category? It is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement. So when I talk about an hierarchy, so it is made up of many different levels. So each level is a taxonomic category. So let me take an example. Let me take an example of a butterfly. So what is a butterfly? Butterfly is an insect. Now all insects fall under the category of arthropods. Now if you are finding this term new, then you should definitely refer to the videos of class 9 diversity in living organisms. We have spoken in detail about all these things. Now these arthropods again fall under the category of animalia, right? So this is a hierarchy. That means Animalia, which includes all animals. Inside that, we have a specific category of arthropods for those insects which have jointed legs. So inside that falls butterfly. So butterfly is just one of the many arthropods. So we can say that butterfly is at a lower level and animalia is at a higher level. So this entire thing is a hierarchy, and each part or a single part is known as a taxonomic category. So taxonomic hierarchy, taxonomic categories together constitute taxonomic hierarchy. So here each step whether these are butterflies or arthropods or animalia, they represent taxonomic categories and they all together form the taxonomic hierarchy. So taxa or taxon. So now taxa is a plural term. The singular term of taxa is taxon. It is each taxonomic category represents a unit of classification and is known as taxon or rank. That means each level is known as a taxon or taxonomic category, however you call it. So similarly, you can consider the examples of human beings. Human beings are all mammals. Mammals are all vertebrates. Vertebrates are all animalia. Right? So this way, all the organisms are put into this hierarchical structure. So we can say that a group is nothing but a category. Like as I said, all organisms with certain similarities, they are put together in one group. So that group is nothing but a category. And that category is nothing but known as a taxon or a rank. So let us have a look at the hierarchical classification. So here we will see what are the different levels which have been created so that we can classify or we can group organisms into those categories. I mean, a standard set of taxonomical hierarchy has been created. So each and every living organism are put into those categories. So let us look at those hierarchical classification. So first comes a kingdom. Under a kingdom, you have many phylum. We use the term phylum for animals and we use the term division for plants. Under that we have class, under which we have order, then family, genus and then species. So these are the taxonomic categories. Now every living organism will be arranged based on these taxonomic categories. So when I talk about kingdom, so kingdom is at the highest level. So when I say kingdom, we basically say that the number of kingdoms are very few. So we will talk about how many kingdoms are there in our next lesson when we talk about the biological classification. So for now, I'm just giving you an example because you have already studied about these things, the basics of all these things in your class 9th. So when I say kingdom, let us suppose if I say there is a plant kingdom, there is an animal kingdom. Right? So that plant kingdom will include all varieties of plants, be it cactus, be it grass, be it a big tree, be it a flowering plant, non-flowering plant, aquatic plant, whatever. Every plant will be included in that kingdom plant. Now inside that plant, some plants will be flowering, some will be non-flowering. So then again they will keep on subdividing. So that kingdom will have many phylum. That phylum will have each phylum will have many classes. Like let us suppose if there is one kingdom. So one kingdom will have many phylum or division. So phylum or division. Phylum for animals and division for plants. Now each phylum or division will have many classes. Again, each class will have many orders. Each order will have many families. Again, each family will have many genus. So you are seeing how it is. So you can see that with this kind of a structure, you can put all the organisms that we see around us in some or the other place. So remembering this hierarchy is very, very important because as long as you don't understand it, you will not be able to understand the process of classification. Now we see that here species becomes the lowest level. So we say that species is the basic unit of classification of organisms. So this is the basic unit of classification. Now we see that as we go up in this hierarchy, the similarities between the organisms decreases. So the similarities decreases. So what does that mean? That means that organisms which are of the same species, they have a lot of similarities among themselves. Organisms which are of the same genus, even though they are of different species, but they are all of the same genus, they have lesser similarities. Again, organisms who belong to the same family, even though they are from different genus and different species, they share even lesser similarities. So as we go up, the similarities between the organisms keep decreasing. Finding it difficult to understand this? Okay, let us try to understand this concept taking a very common example from our day-to-day life. So let us look at this example. We say that the more the similarities, the more closely the persons are related. For example, you forget about any other living organism. Consider human beings. Have you ever observed that each one of us look very similar to our siblings? We look very similar to our brothers or sisters. We also look similar to our parents. But do you think that you look very similar to your friend? No. So when you look very similar to your brother and you look very different from your friend, what does that mean? That means the more the similarities, more closely they are related. So there are more similarities between you and your brother, so you are closely related. There are less similarities between you and your friend, so you are not closely related. So you are not close relatives. So let us try to understand this with this example. Let us suppose this is a couple. They get married, they have 2 kids. Now these 2 kids, they look very similar to each other. Like 2 brothers, they have a lot of similarities, right? So here also we see they share many common things between them, right? So they look very similar. Now let us say each of them gets married. So they again have kids. But now if you compare the similarities between their kids and the similarities between them, do you think they are as similar as they were, as their parents were? No. Because now these 2 kids are not real brothers and sisters. They are first cousins, right? It is like you and your first cousin. You will look more similar to your brother than to your first cousin. Now again, let us suppose they get married and they give birth to kids. So now these 2 kids are again similar because they are their own brothers. So they have a lot of similarities. But if you compare any of these kids with any of them, they are very different because they are second cousins. So now as you become more distant, the similarities start decreasing, right? So here in this case, they were own siblings. So the similarities were more. So here they were first cousins. So the similarities were less. Here they were second cousins. This group and this group are second cousins. So the similarities are even lesser. So here also you see as we go up, the similarities keep decreasing. So you understand this concept? Okay. So in a very similar fashion, when I talk about the taxonomic categories, as we go up, that means organisms which belong to the same species, they have a lot of similarities. Now, organisms which belong to different species but they belong to the same genus, they have lesser similarities. Organisms which belong to different species, different genus but same family, they have even lesser similarity. So likewise, the organisms which belong to different species, different genus, different family, order, class, phylum, but they belong to the same kingdom, they share even a lot lesser similarities. Right? So as we go up, the similarities keep decreasing. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.